Welcome to San Angelo Live's special edition of The Daily Show. I'm Del Velasquez, and this is the live show. We want to thank Shelburne Financial and the Tom Green County Stevens Library for hosting us this evening. I'm so glad to be here with you all today, and I also want to be sure and let you know that this is being broadcast over Facebook, and tomorrow the recording will be accessible on YouTube, so be sure and have your family and friends watch. And thank you all so much for being here today, and those of you who are watching online. This is a very important, as you all know, an election. Every year we come to these points where we are very engaged in being educated and making sure that we make the right decisions. I'd like to thank the Tom Green County SUG Community Room for hosting us today. And at first, we're going to have the Republican County Chair candidates. And our first will be Bruce Burkett. Mr. Burkett, please. Come on up, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for coming out this evening. I appreciate it. I appreciate San Angelo Live for putting this on for us, and I hope everybody has a good evening. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Bruce Burkett. I am your Tom Green County Republican Chair at this time. I've been elected in this position since 2021. A little bit about myself is I'm married. I met my wife in El Dorado. We've been together for 35 years. We have grown children who have children of their own. I went into the military when I got out of high school, served 4 years in the Navy. Then I started out in law enforcement and did 45 years in law enforcement. After that, I started being your Republican County Chair. When I took over as chair, I didn't have any help from the outgoing chair learning the election process. That I had to get from the state of Texas, from a very devoted group of board members and precinct chairs that were already there at the Tom Green County Republican office. My first election, I had to put in 27 candidates and 18 precinct chairs. That was local candidates, and from that election, we had 7 contested races, and after that was over, we had, of course, the runoffs. I'd learned to do finances for the state. Now the state is glad that you know how to do finances already, but they want you to do it their way. So that was a lot of fun to learn. A lot of trial and error and a lot of help from Jennifer Hall as the state party. This election process, we've already got 22 local candidates, and we have 4 contested races. It's going to be very interesting to see if we have any federal or state runoffs, which I'm positive we will. The first election I ran, we didn't have any Democrats run for election at all. This election cycle, we already have 2 Democrats that are running locally. The state is going to have a bunch of contested races right now. Everybody's fighting out on who's going to be your candidate for the November election. We need to make sure that we understand that we've got to stand together. Now, when I did that first election, we went ahead and did the precinct and then the county convention. After that, I was able to take more delegates to the state convention than the county of Lubbock brought. It caused quite a stir. I was able to take a group that they asked me, how did you do this, Bruce? Well, I asked them. Sitting on the front row is the president of the San Angelo Republican Women. Right behind her is the president of the Constitutional Republican Women. Right behind her is some of the people from the Tea Party. Sitting next to him is the president of the Pachyderm Club. And I just asked everybody to come, and they did. I had people go to the state convention that weren't delegates that paid their way to be there so they could participate. We've got a good party here in Tom Green County, and I promise you, all the federal and state people depend on us to pull this thing out of the fire a lot of the times. We have a very strong party here. We're 90% red. So I'm asking y'all if you could think about me during this upcoming election. I've been doing the job for a while. I know I'm not doing it the way some people want me to do it, but I think I'm doing it the way it's supposed to be done. Thank you very much.
By the way, for those of you who are online watching, San Angelo, Texas is located about 3 hours from Austin and a little bit south of Abilene, about an hour from Abilene. So give you some perspective of where we're located for those of you who are watching online. Our next candidate will be Ruth Staton. Ms. Staton, please.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
My name is Ruth Staton. I have been married for over 50 years. I have 3 kids, 9 grandkids, and I have been active in the Republican Party for a long time. I guess I started out when we had Reagan in 1984. I've been a political consultant. Is it working? I've been a political consultant and campaign manager for over 25 years in Collin County. I've worked in the elections office. I was precinct chairs. I've been election judges. I was alternate judge in El Paso County. I have been commissioners of condemnation appointed by Republican judges. I have been in the Republican Party so long, I'm a very strong conservative. Somebody got a phone call. The reason that I decided to run for county chair is when I first came to Tom Green County, I couldn't find anybody to talk to me. I couldn't find anybody to tell me anything about the clubs. I couldn't find anybody to help me with the office. I couldn't find anybody to take phone calls. And with the way that our county and state and nation is going right now, we need the office to be open 5 days a week at least. We need phone calls returned. The precinct chairs are doing a good job, but they probably need a little, you have to get trained all the time. We need young people. And that's one thing I am very compassionate about is the Republican Party has gotten to be a party of older generation. We don't seem to have the younger generation, and that is one thing we need. I have already, the last time I had talked about bringing in young people, I had said I wanted to start young Republican clubs in the high schools and the college. Well, I have already started that. I have 2 different high schools that I am working with the students to try to bring in more young Republicans. And that is one thing that we really need to do right now, is to bring in more people. Another thing is, with our country so divided and the county so divided, the state so divided, it's a shame. I noticed the other day on the news it showed Republicans standing outside and booing the governor because they didn't like who he was coming to talk about. But that's something Democrats would do. We are Republicans. We need to stand together. We don't need to be out there bashing our other Republicans. And that is one thing that I hope to do, is to bring or try to bring our party together. Thank you very much.
As we mentioned before, the forum tonight is for Republican candidates. There are none of the Democratic candidates that have opposition, only in the Republican Party. So the forum tonight is dedicated to Republicans and are looking at the future time frame for having a forum for the Democratic Party as well. Our next office that's up for election is the County Tax Assessor Collector. And the candidates are Juan Acevedo, and understand he is not here this evening, is that correct? Okay. And Miss Becky Robles, and I know she's here. So Becky, please join us. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Becky Robles. I'm your current tax assessor collector here in Tom Green County. I'm a lifelong resident of San Angelo. I have a fabulous husband, Steve, of 27 years. Sorry, I forget my glasses. We have a son, Dallas, a daughter, Ashley, and a 5-year-old grandson who is the light of our life. I've worked in the tax assessor's office for 35 years. I was hired as a part-time VOE student in 1986 while I was in high school by Evelyn Vordick and was rehired in 1988 full-time as a full-time employee. I started as a title clerk on the front counter where we serve the general public. When I first started, we hand-typed all the title and registration receipts. And boy, was I a happy camper when the state became automated with the registration and title system. The typewriters went away and everything was on computer. That was the highlight of my life. I was promoted to the dealer section in 1991 and became a supervisor of that department in 1997. Cindy Jeton was elected as the new tax assessor that year. In October of 1997, I was promoted to chief deputy where I served 17 years until Cindy passed away in office in 2014. I was then appointed to serve the remaining 2 years of the 4-year term. I have held this position from 2014 to the present. My role as tax assessor collector is over title and registration of motor vehicles and trailers, issuing handicap placards and plates. In some counties, the tax assessor is over property tax collection, but in Tom Green County, we contract with the appraisal district to collect county taxes. Shoo. As agents of the DMV and state comptroller, my office is responsible for collecting motor vehicle sales tax and registration fees. These fees are remitted to the DMV, state comptroller, and Tom Green County on a daily basis. As the tax assessor collector, I'm responsible for all the public funds that are collected in my office. For this reason, I have to be bonded to the governor, the state comptroller, and commissioner's court in the sum of $100,000 for each bond. As agents of the DMV, our laws are set by the legislature or regulated by DMV policies. I, as a tax assessor, have no control over the laws passed or policies set by the DMV. Did I know the laws, rules, and regulations when I started at this job? No. But starting from the entry-level position and working my way up by promotions is how I have gained the knowledge I have today. I serve over 50 dealerships and a population of 120,000 people here in Tom Green County. My office processes approximately 150 title transfers and 300 registrations daily. We take in an average of $175,000 daily and over $10 million in motor vehicle sales tax yearly. My daily job consists of examining the title transfers processed the previous day for any errors that may cause a customer to not receive a correct title, such as misspelling of their name and or their address, checking to make sure proper evidence has been submitted, etc. as well as answering clerk's questions to help process the transaction in a timely manner. I've only received excellent reviews from the Enforcement Division of the DMV. This means my state inventory is always consistent with their reports, and there's no inventory missing by fraud, waste, or abuse. I always pass thorough audits from the county auditor's office as well. I hope my years of service, my experience, and my commitment to the citizens of Tom Green County will be deserving of your vote. Please re-elect Becky Robles, Tax Assessor Collector. Early voting starts February 20th, and Election Day is March 5th. Thank you, and have a blessed day.
Next, our County Constable Precinct 4. We have Mr. Gary Cole.
First of all, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming tonight, especially those you are watching at home on TV. Got to adjust this microphone here, sorry. My name's Gary Cole, born and raised here in San Angelo, graduated Central High School in '99, been married to my wife for over 20 years. We have a 16-year-old daughter, and I can tell you this campaign stuff has definitely opened her eyes up to politics. And I think it's for the better for her. I started off after I graduated Howard College here with the Tom Green County Sheriff's Office as a correctional officer under Sheriff Joe Hunt. And in 2004, I became a deputy. And while working at the jail, I still maintained working over at the district courthouse and the county courthouse as a bailiff when they needed one. That gave me the insight of what it took to be in a courtroom and what goes on in a courtroom. And that was an eye-opening experience. It's nothing like you see on TV, trust me. In November of '06, I transferred out of the jail and promoted to the patrol division, spent a small time at the courthouse security program, and then went to patrol. Spent many long nights and days out riding around a patrol car in this vast county. And I can tell you, this county is pretty good size. You'll never know every road in this county. Back then, we just had a map book and a dispatcher told us E6, so you flipped it over and that's where you went. Things have changed, computers came along, but so did law enforcement. In 2011, I transferred to the Criminal Investigation Division of the Tom Green County Sheriff's Office. During that time, I got to investigate crimes from homicides, assaults, narcotics. I got to work with many other law enforcement agencies from the San Angelo Police Department, the Texas Department of Public Safety, federal agencies, everywhere around. And the majority of that was I became a cell phone forensic investigator. With that tool, it allowed us to solve crimes very quickly and easy. We didn't have to run them to a lab. We didn't have to wait. We could do it in-house and get results right then. Another one of my duties with the Tom Green County Sheriff's Office is I also was a member of the SWAT team. I also ran the STEP program, the Select Traffic Enforcement Program. I will tell you that taught me how to prepare a budget. I worked with nearly $100,000 in grants provided from TxDOT, the Federal Highway Transportation System, and the county. With those, you have to prepare budgets, present them to Commissioner's Court. You have to work with your auditor's office. You have to work with your treasurer's office. You have to make sure that all the guys that were out there working that I supervised, they got paid. And I tell you, that was a lot of work, especially with the TxDOT people. Also during that time, I worked with Ms. Robles' office when the state started doing the BTR 68A inspections. I know Becky and I, we worked many days trying to figure out all that paperwork, but we did it. And we offered it free to the citizens of Tom Green County, where most counties were charging anywhere from $25 to $50 an inspection. In January of '22, I had an opportunity when the Howard County Sheriff's Office in Big Spring, Texas started the Street Crimes Division. I spent the first 10 months up there completely undercover. Only the sheriff and a few other people knew I was there. I went around, bought narcotics and guns, and had a fun time. It was great. It really was. And I couldn't have done it without the group of guys behind me. They really supported me, even though they sat a lot of long nights in cars waiting for me to get the deal done, but it did. Since then, I'm still in investigations, doing cell phone forensics, still working with other agencies, including the Big Spring Police Department. Right now, I'm back in general investigations, still got homicides on my desk, all kinds of other crimes of thefts. But one of the passions that I've got, and I got it here working with other agencies, is predators who prey among our children. I've done many of stings where I pretended to be a teenager to lure these predators out. And with that, I will tell you that is sometimes the hardest thing to find, is because these people, you don't know who they are. And when you find them, you're just as surprised as they are, you know. But in that, it's very rewarding, because if you can save one child, you might be able to save a bunch more. Also, with that, being in Howard County, we don't have a per se elected constable, and always having worked for a sheriff's office, I've served civil process. I worked with the constables here at Tom Green County when I was here. When they would do evictions and come across narcotics, they would call me and I would come over and assist with that. Either it would build a case for me or help out with other investigations. But the main thing that I like to preach is, as law enforcement, we have to work as a team. And I know the constable's position here is mostly civil process, but I believe the constable's office can do more. It can back up our brothers and sisters in blue and help protect our community. That's why I'm seeking the Republican nomination for constable of Tom Green County Precinct 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas Bigman cannot attend this evening. I don't believe there's a representative from his campaign here. No. Okay, thank you. Our next election office is for County Commissioner, and Mr. Ralph Hoelsher. Would you please join us?
I want to thank everybody for inviting me here tonight. I see a very large crowd. I appreciate that. That shows that people are interested in the political process. I just wish more and more people would get involved, that they know how it operates. That is the key factor. I've been serving as county commissioner for Precinct 1, which is the northeast sector of the county. There's 4 precincts, 4 commissioners. As I came in 2005 as elected official, they took me on a tour of the county. Well, I went into every department, and as I went into offices, man, there was boxes stacked up along the walls and in the hallways and everywhere. I asked, what is it, all this? They said, that's the records. I said, oh my gosh, that's the kind of storage you have? What if you're looking for something? Well, we just look through the boxes. I said, well, that takes a lot of time. You may not find it. Okay. I said, this place needs a record storage and management place. And first thing I thought about is the empty space in the Keys building. But at that time, the county commissioner's court was wanting to put a addition to the library in that area. And I looked at it and I said, this is really not good. There's nobody got interest in it, nobody's contributing any money towards it, and it's not much space really if you look at it for a library. And I thought, well, that's a place for record management. So, okay, what was going to do about the library? So I asked the county judge, I said, well, could you give me a little time because I noticed they had a hold up for some reason. And they said, yeah, I'll give you a little time. So I went and contacted some people, particularly people who was interested in library and ones willing to contribute money towards looking at this building right here as it is now. It was the old Hempy Wells building. It was abandoned and everything. I said, that would be the place for a library. And other people took interest in it also. So contributions kept coming in, and it started drawing more attention and more attention. And finally, we got enough money together to start construction, and with the Commissioner's Court approval, it happened. And look what you have here. You have a very beautiful building, something you'd be proud of for the county. And we also did renovation on the West Branch, just to put that in also. So there's big interest in libraries. And as we got this finished in, the record management could go in the bottom of the basement of Keys building, which made such a beautiful improvement in offices. And then you had some expert management. So then, as we went on through my time in office, the county jail was condemned for structural damage. Well, we had to build a county jail. That was going to take lots of money, and it did take a lot of money. We built a big, fabulous building east of town, and it will serve the county for many, many years. And then the Keys building was all renovated for office space, Commissioner's Court, and various other buildings. In the courthouse, we have a very new renovation there, new courtroom, larger courtroom. I am so happy we did everything we did during these years. Because as we're going along now, we're reducing property tax. And that will stop renovation. We cannot proceed forward. We need more renovation, because as you reduce property tax is what funds the county, the school districts, and the city. And there's lots of talk about zero property tax. Think about it, people. This county cannot operate with zero property tax. We do numerous programs for the state of Texas. This is requested from the state, and we do have to come up with funding for these programs. And these programs are approximately 80% of our $60 million budget. Without property tax, we can't do it. So what are we to do? I don't know. But I am seeking re-election to be a part of the team, the other commissioners and the county judge, Commissioner's Court, to be available to make these tough decisions of what are we going to do. The areas that can be cut are maintenance to the 650 miles of county roads. That is infrastructure for the county. That moves industry, agriculture products. It moves people from the country to the city to work. It moves the sick people, the people that need to go to the doctors and that. It moves them to the town to get medical care.
Time.
It's all? Okay. I'm just asking for people to consider all of this as you go into the election booth. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Michele DeRusso.
Good evening. So Mr. Hyde said we're supposed to have a little fun, and my husband said not to do this, but go Chiefs. I couldn't resist that, and I should have done the guns up at the same time. Anyway, my family are big Red Raider fans. Lots of them went there. I didn't. I went to Angelo State. But anyway, good evening. My name is Michele DeRusso. I want to thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. I'm running for County Commissioner, Precinct 1. Running for this office is something that I feel called to do. My faith, service to others is very important to me. The property tax situation this past year motivated me to pursue running for County Commissioner. My professional experience, as well as being a native of Tom Green County, puts me in a unique position to understand the people I will be serving, as well as the skills to do the job. I want to share with you a little bit about my background. I'm a third-generation resident in Tom Green County. My family has lived in Precinct 1 for 18 years. My parents, who are here today, Billy and Loretta Schneers, they live in Sammy Farmers District, so there's no nepotism there. I've been married to my husband, David, for 27 years. He's also here today, and we have one daughter, Andrea, who is a college student. I grew up in Wall and am a graduate of Wall ISD. I went on to graduate from Angelo State University with a bachelor's in accounting. I started my career as a sales tax auditor working for the Comptroller's Office for the state of Texas. And yes, that was when Bob Bullock was the Comptroller and we were called Bullock's Raiders. I'll let y'all figure out why. Which this gave me an insight into the tax structure and how those funds are allocated. In 1993, I passed the CPA exam and became a certified public accountant, which I have maintained in good standing for the past 30 years. I went on to work for Hunt Building Corporation, who was a real estate developer and construction company. It was during this work experience that I learned much about planning, land plats, meets, and bounds. I then went on to work for a national home builder, and later on my husband and I had a construction company in San Angelo. I also worked for Verizon and Republic Services, and I most recently retired from the controller position at Texas Pacifico. Throughout my career, I've been responsible for budgets, accounting, processes, and the management of people. As you can see from my varied work experience, I have gained knowledge that will benefit the role of commissioner. I have many people asking me, what is the job of a county commissioner? Most folks think of maintaining roads and bridges, but there is so much more to this job. The job of the county commissioner calls for hands-on service, as well as policy-making budget decisions. Commissioners vote with the county judge to set the budget for all county departments and adopt a tax rate. Among other responsibilities, the Commissioners Court subsidizes rural fire protection, calls, conducts, and certifies elections, including bond elections, establishes long-range thoroughfare, open space, land use, financial and law enforcement, jail needs and plans, acquires property for right-of-ways and uses and other uses determined to be in the public's best interest, reviews and approves subdivision platting and wastewater treatment for rural areas, has exclusive authority to authorize contracts in the name of the county, appoints non-elected department heads and standing committees, supervises and controls the county courthouse, county buildings, and facilities, fills vacancies in elective and appointed positions, sets commissioners and justice of the peace precinct boundaries, set employment and benefit policies. Since the beginning of January, my family myself, and a few friends have helped me walk blocks and drive county roads. We have personally visited 1,200 residences. These are the things that the folks are most concerned about: safety for themselves and neighbors, having their concerns heard and addressed, improving their county parks, keeping property taxes down. I plan to address those concerns, and in addition, I will focus on security for you and your family with a ready sheriff and fire department, keep property tax rates from increasing, scrutinize budgets and expenses for potential savings, eliminate waste, and review future projects from a cost-benefit perspective, seek grant opportunities to support community services, make sure roads are maintained for safe travel, work for economic development. Working on all the above, we will be able to save the county money and grow the tax base. Throughout my career and community involvement, I have built a network of friends and colleagues. This network will be beneficial to getting things done. I will represent equally all the people of Precinct 1 and Tom Green County. I will be available to hear your concerns and take action to improve the lives of the residents. I will be there every day, working on challenges of our county. I bring the experience, energy, and enthusiasm to make Tom Green County a better place to live and work for all of us. A vote for me is a vote for you, a new voice for a new time. Thank you.
Well, let us show our appreciation for all of the candidates that have stepped up to support our county. Thank you. We're going to take a 3-minute break and get ready for a conversation with Drew Darby.
Now's your chance to get cookies and water.
Testing mic. Testing mic. Test mic 111. Okay, can everyone get back in their seats? We don't want to lose our audience. They look tired of looking at us. Is it working?
Yeah, it's working.
Everything's working?
I believe so.
How you doing, sir? Well, welcome back. Welcome back. Are we ready back there? You're not going to give me a countdown or anything? 3, 2, 1. Well, welcome back. I'm Joe Hyde. I am the publisher of St. Angelo Live, and I hope y'all can hear me. Thank you for coming out tonight. We have about 60 people here, which is pretty good for this kind of event. But we had invited everyone who was running in a contested race. And so we didn't invite the Democrats because all the Democrats are running in a separate primary, and none of them that are running are contested. So we'll have a Democrat versus Republican forum probably somewhere leading up into November, if you guys like this. Do y'all like this format? I mean, just silence. Everyone has silence. There you go. And then the other thing is we invited the opponent to Drew Darby, Stormy Bradley, to participate in this. And we never got to speak with Stormy herself, but her handlers out of Austin or Houston or wherever the heck, or DC, said that they couldn't do it because I have a habit of defending Drew Darby. And folks, I don't have a habit of defending Drew Darby. I have a habit of trying to tell the truth. And if telling the truth means I look like I'm defending a politician, Lord knows I know all the politicians in town. I certainly don't defend them all. Some of them hate me. But Mr. Drew Darby and I go back a long way. We've been Rotarians together, and I know him. And one of the things that's important for the news media business is two things. In local markets like St. Angelo, Texas, we are in what could be called a news desert. If St. Angelo Live wasn't here, who's going to report the news to you, particularly on the political issues like this? And number two is we really have a problem nationwide with the news media, that people can't tell the truth. So if you're going to run for office, I think you ought to participate in the news media's forum. But I'm going to get off my soapbox right now, and I'm going to stand up and let's welcome Drew Darby. And I'm about to fall down. Make sure that mic's pulled up there. This is just a conversation, so you can imagine like at one of these geek tech conferences in San Francisco where you have Elon Musk over there, and some newspaper, some Wired magazine writer, but just don't do what Elon Musk did. Okay. He cussed at the audience.
I would never do that.
You would never do that? Well, Representative Darby, I think the elephant in the room is the fact that everyone out here is watching this recording has probably received a text message or a direct mail piece. And they probably received, I said this I wrote this one day, enough direct mail pieces to build their own personal Aggie bonfire.
And that's a big fire.
Yes, that's a really big fire. They all say that you're not a conservative, you're a liberal, and you're a RINO. In fact, if you guys watch X or Twitter, Greg Abbott, our governor, called him a liar the other day. So I'm just going to put it out there. Representative Darby, are you a RINO? Which means Republican in name only.
Well, Joe, first of all, thanks to everyone here. Can you hear me, by the way, or do I need to speak up? Okay. Well, I'll try to speak a little louder then. Thank you for being here. It's important that people participate in their government. In order to participate, you've got to be informed. And to be informed, you have to try to read. You have to try to be where people are congregated and try to inform yourself about the issues. And so by your presence today, clearly you have made that step, and for that I'm grateful. I'm also grateful for San Angelo Live for broadcasting this. There are folks that are homebound and folks that cannot be up here tonight, and what will happen is that this taping hopefully will educate folks about some of the issues. Your question is kind of loaded, Joe.
I know, I always ask loaded
Okay.
questions.
Said the spider to the fly. But clearly, I guess the first rule in elections is your opponent is always going to lie. So your best and only defense is to represent your district. And that's the rule that I apply. And because I've represented my district, I take seriously my oath to represent the folks in House District 72. There are 10 counties that I represent, 200,000 people that live and work in the Concho Valley. Yes, there are Republicans. Yes, there are Democrats. Yes, there are independents. There's old people, there's young people, there's infirm people, there's intellectually disabled people. There are folks that are looking to state government to provide them essential services that they need to live in a place like San Angelo, or Robert Lee, or Braun, or Ballinger, or all the little communities that make up West Texas. Since 2007, I haven't changed. I have voted my district every time. And so when somebody calls me a RINO, I kind of bristle up. I've not changed. I've not changed at all. Those of you, and I look at Kenneth Deerskin, some in the room, we didn't have Republican primaries in Tom Ring County in the 50s and the 60s. There weren't any Republicans. But in the 70s, I moved back here out of law school in 72, and I went to work for a small law firm. My father was killed in a plane crash, and so my mother was widowed, and I felt the need to come back and help her and my younger sister. Never regretted that decision. But there was Democrats. There were liberal Democrats, there were conservative Democrats, but everybody ran under the label of a Democrat. Well, in the early 70s, those of you of an age might remember the John Birch Society. Well, I worked for an attorney named Pat Hall. Probably there's never been a more conservative individual than Pat Hall. And another one was Ken Gunner, worked in the town. And they were a part of what was called back then the John Birch Society. William Buckley and others espoused conservative views. And those views resonated with me. And so when Bill Clements wanted to run for governor, a Republican candidate for governor in Texas, there was no Republican primaries. I helped organize the first Republican primary held in 1978 here. It took hold. The ideas took hold. And so we started trying to get Republican candidates to run for local offices. It's one thing to have a Republican governor, but it's another thing to have a Republican county commissioner or county judge. They were all Democrats, mind you. Well, over these years, we've been able to transition from a Democratic label to a Republican label. Have those folks changed really dramatically? They were conservative. They believed in rural Texas. They believed in rural values, family, faith. those are values that resonate with Republicans certainly, but they resonate as rural folks that live and work in this part of the world. So when you see that stuff in the mail, accusing me of being a RINO, Republican in name only, it's coming to you from folks that live not in this state, not in this district, but in Alexandria, Virginia, or Chicago. Do you think any of those ad officials and consultants are conservative Republicans? They make money as grifters. Grifters trying to convince you that I'm not a Republican. They're lies. They're lies. But yet they're making money trying to convince you.
We'll get into that in a minute. We'll get that in a minute. But I want people to understand a little bit about your I guess you're growing up and what formed you. You said you grew up in San Angelo, and you know, we do a lot of coverage of high school football, for example, right?
Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights. So were you a Central Bobcat? Did you play football for the?
I was.
So what was the just? I mean, give us a history lesson on that back in the 1960s.
Well, I can tell you, football was king then, and it is now. I had the benefit of having been coached by two pretty good coaches. Spike Dykes was my linebacker coach,
Okay.
and Emery Ballard was my head coach, and we won district. This was back in 62, 63, 64, and we were ranked #1 in the country at one time. But San Angelo Central High School, in that experience, playing athletics, playing in West Texas football, which is king then and it is now, kind of formed my life. It formed that our public schools are central and lifeblood of each community.
I think we see that. I see it personally when I'm traveling through these football games. I mean, Ryan Chadwick and I have done just about every 6A football team, been to every stadium, probably twice, maybe 3 times. We see it with the crowd size, particularly out here in West Texas. And this is something you may not understand. In the Metroplex, when Central was in the Metroplex district, and we had to travel there to play those schools that beat us, like Arlington, Martin, and things like that, the stadiums weren't as full. They're big. I mean, there's more people going to show, and the smaller the school, the more people are in the stadium.
Absolutely.
So that kind of got me trying to think about this big issue that hit the Texas legislature this year, which was these private school vouchers. Now, I'm a conservative, just like everyone else is a conservative. I like the idea that I can choose what school to send my kid to. I like the idea of the state subsidizing that choice too, sometimes, because, you know, we're all, you know, we could use a little beer money, right? But just give me your vision of public schools and why you stood up. I mean, you stood up against a firestorm of opposition in the House right now because you stood up for public schools. What is it about public schools, other than what I just told you, my anecdotal things of looking at the Friday Night Lights? What is it about public schools that are so important to our state and to our nation?
They've been important to our state for 200 years. Texas obtained its independence in 1836. And one of the first and primary reasons why Texas left and wanted to move away from Mexico was the failure to implement a public education system. And I looked this up this afternoon, and I thought I might need it, but I want to read some language to you that I think was important 200 years ago, and it's just as important today. And this was in the Texas Declaration of Independence. It, being Mexico, has failed to establish any public system of education, although possessed of almost boundless resources, the public domain. And although it is an axiom in political science that unless a people are educated and enlightened, it is idle to expect the continuance of civil liberty or the capacity for self-government. That was written 200 years ago by folks, hardscrabble education. But they put it down in your Declaration of Independence that this is an axiom. We must educate the public. Now, your children and my children will probably receive an education if the state of Texas didn't pick it up. But what about the thousands, the millions of public school children here in this state that are looking to the state of Texas? In our Constitution, we said it is the primary obligation of the state to establish a free and efficient public education system. I take that oath when I swore allegiance to this state. When I took that oath to say the first obligation that I feel is important is we must maintain a public education system. And so when the proposal comes out that we need to take public dollars and move them to private or parochial schools without any accountability, without any transparency, without any open
Let's stop right there.
Okay.
Is it taking public dollars, which now the Declaration of Independence and the Texas Constitution says we have to provide an education for everyone, universal education. I guess they could probably call it public education in the Constitution, so to be a constitutionalist, I should say public education.
Yes.
What's the difference? Why don't just, if I give you $10,500 to send your kid to Cornerstone Christian and someone else's parents want to send them to Los Angeles Central, they're both getting educated, and the state is still paying, the same amount roughly, right?
Not really. What you're asking for is to take public dollars and transfer those to private hands. And the idea still has some merit, I admit. We do that for special needs kids right now. If a child is not receiving what they need from a public school, then there are programs that child gets those special services elsewhere or supplements.
Right.
The problem is that costs about $4 billion a year. We only pay $2 billion. So we're underfunding access to special needs kids.
So you're using special needs kids kind of as a macroeconomic model of what might happen with the public school versus private school programs.
Correct. But here's the distinction. I believe in choice. Every parent here has the opportunity to decide where your kid goes to school. In San Angelo, we have a wonderful public school. We have a wonderful public charter school. We have wonderful private or parochial schools, Ambleside, Cornerstone, Angelo Catholic, Trinity Lutheran. And we have one of the largest homeschool communities in the state here in San Angelo. That's a parent's choice. But what they're asking in the proposal at hand, Joe, is to take those public dollars and move them to private or parochial hands without the same accountability, without the same transparency, without the same testing, without the same open enrollment policy. Vouchers
so what you're saying is that with the way the plan was proposed, you could cherry pick the best students, the most talented athletes, the best musicians, the kids that had the most involved parents, pay for their private school, move them into the private school system, and leave the public school with the ones of maybe special needs kids, behavioral problems, things like that, and then expect them to compete on an even scale.
Exactly. Keep in mind, vouchers doesn't go to the parent. When you show up with a voucher to the school, the school has the choice whether to let that child in or not. If that child doesn't look like other students at that school, doesn't behave
so
like...
there's no anti-discrimination, doesn't this law prevent you from being discriminating?
No.
Okay,
No.
so they can just do whatever they want to.
That's why they're private. They use private funds for that.
But I would think
But
the
when
federal,
you but
federal
when
also
you
would step
when
in.
you put public dollars, government dollars,
Mm-hmm.
into that private environment, then government strings should be attached to
But
that.
they're not.
Well, it's up to the legislature to set the terms.
So
of
the,
how
the bill that you fought over several terms, that Abbott kept calling you back, Governor Abbott kept. Did they have any kind of accountability in those?
They
in those-
did. They did.
What kind of accountability did this private
They
school?
had to test. They had to test.
The private school had to test. They had to
Private
take the
school
STAR
had,
test.
there had to be an accountability system where the school and the student had to take
But
a
what
test.
about anti-discrimination, or could they say that you can't?
We couldn't put that in there, didn't have that in the bill, but the reality is schools make that determination. Again, if private schools typically, well, almost universally, never take a student if there are behavioral issues. If that child is acting up, that school's not going to take that child. If that child has a learning disability and that school is not equipped professionally and or with technology to handle the needs of that child, then they're going to refuse. That voucher means nothing to that private school if they don't want to let that child in.
Okay.
And so public schools have those things. Public schools have to take children. If they show up at the door, they have to take that child. Doesn't matter about the learning disability. Doesn't matter about the behavioral issues. They have to take that child.
Let's talk money. So the last voucher bill that you considered in the House, I believe they were talking $10,500 per child. If I take that $10,500 per child and it follows them around, obviously I'm going to have to plus up the public school to $10,500 per kid because they're supposed to be equal, right? So if I move this child from public school to private school, what I'm being told is it's a revenue neutral event. It doesn't impact the budgets of the public school. And where I'm getting at is like Robert Lee or Christoval. When my kid went to Christoval, they had 20 people in the graduating class. That's a small school. And if you take 5 kids out of there, that's a lot of allotment that you would take out, right?
Absolutely.
So is it an even trade, a revenue neutral thing, or what does it do to the public school?
Well, first of all, the basic allotment for schools is $6,200.
So just to make sure you understand what he's talking about, the basic allotment for schools would be every student. That's why the SAISD or San Angelo ISD is so worried about their enrollment, right? They have about 13,500 kids. They get paid what,
$6,200.
$6,200 per kid? But they're not getting $10,500 per kid. So if I take that, they're going to lose $6,200 if that kid comes out, and the private school is going to get $10,500.
I can tell you that was loudly discussed on the floor of the House. Why should we pay somebody $10,500 to leave a school, especially in rural Texas, which is more than what the state is paying towards that student in public school?
So it's not a revenue neutral thing for public schools.
No, it's not a revenue neutral thing. And I mean, we tried. The Public Education Committee listened to a lot of folks and tried to structure a plan that if you leave a rural school, then the state would continue paying that for 2 years. But at the end of that time, they would lose all support for that child.
So you continue to pay the $6,200 for 2
Correct.
years.
And here's, this is not conservative to create an entitlement program. A third entitlement program. We have a entitlement program. It's called the Public School Foundation Program.
We have a lot of entitlement programs. We have Medicare.
Exactly.
And we have Social Security. I mean, don't yell at me. I know y'all paid into it. We all paid into it, right? But entitlement programs are overcoming the budget of the federal budget. I mean, they have very little discretionary money to spend. Just like the state of Texas, I'm sure. I think you're down to what, 18% that really is?
It's actually 12%.
12%?
Yeah,
and so was this money coming, I understand this money was coming out of that small little slither that's shared with Texas DPS and a lot of prisons and a lot of other essential services.
To give you an idea, this entitlement program that the governor and others wanted to create would be $4 billion a biennium in the third and the fourth year. $4 billion. Give you an idea how much that is.
So it's about $2 billion a year.
$2 billion a year in the third and fourth year. There are projections to go to 7 to 8 billion in the out years.
How much is public school right now? Roughly.
How much we paid in this foundation school program? About 90 billion.
$90 billion. And so we're going to add this other thing that's going to grow quickly to 4 to 8 to 10 billion.
You know, there's some in the state want a universal voucher program. There are currently about 1 million students, 250,000 in private schools and 750,000 students in being homeschooled. If you have a universal savings account, then without taking a single child out of public schools, the 1 million kids that, quote, get a universal plan, that would be $21 billion a biennium.
And this is in addition to the Foundation Schools program, which we're already
Absolutely.
obligated to spend money on.
Correct.
So let me ask you this. If we did all this and we go down this road, how are we going to pay for it?
Well, that's the point. 12% of the budget is discretionary. The rest, 88%, is governed by formula. Foundation school program, Medicaid, all of these things, transportation funding, it's all allocated when we.
Watch out for that microphone.
Okay. When we approve money for roads, that's set aside money that instead of going into general revenue would go into funding roads. All of that's 88%. 12% is what we as budget writers get to play with. $4 billion vouchers, years 3 and 4. We fund $4 billion a year for DPS. We fund $3 billion a year for prisons. We spend $4 billion a biennium for border security.
So you're talking about this voucher program in the next legislative session will cost more.
It would compete against the other priority needs of this state, whether it be DPS, border security, and then I mentioned $18 billion worth of property tax.
Well, if you have $90 billion in the public school foundation budget, why don't you just carve some out of that?
It's constitutionally dedicated to the funding of the schools.
So you can't really save much money on public schools pulling students out and putting them into private schools.
No.
You can't do it just because of the inertia, bureaucracy, or you could say we have school district. I can look at San Angelo ISD where we have an administration, we have a certain amount of schools, you start closing down elementary schools, we have riots, right? Because elementary schools are defining communities inside of San Angelo, just like Christoval High School, middle school, elementary school define Christoval. And I keep using Christoval because that's where my kids went to school, but I can use Wall, but the Wall people might get mad at me for mentioning Wall right now because they have a little coach controversy. But anyway.
I don't want to touch that.
I have one last question about the school stuff. You know the parent that says, you know, I really care about my kids. I go to Catholic Mass I'm going to use Wall. I go to St. Ambrose every Sunday. We never miss it. I don't think these public schools, with all their wokeness and their CRT, you know, critical race theory, and I mean, I know that I saw a school counselor from a local school district here use pronouns on his email. Scared me when I saw it first, but they no longer share my values. Why do I want to support this?
They're the very lifeblood of the communities that we have out here in West Texas. We've passed a lot of bills that push back against woke agenda, critical race theory. We have passed laws that are designed to clean up our libraries, for example, House Bill 900 in the last session. All of those legitimate concerns. But I'm also of the opinion a lot of these issues have been enhanced and grown by the same people that are casting these lies. They have an agenda to make money off public education. This has been a long-term plan to destroy public trust in our public schools. COVID played into that. We all saw what happens when we shut access to our public schools away from our kiddos. But I think this has been a a coordinated, dedicated effort to destroy confidence in our public schools by those that wish to profit from it. They wish to privatize, in their words, they wish to privatize government schools. Government schools.
Or at least create an entitlement, an upper middle class entitlement, so that you can have the government pay for your kids' choice in private schools.
Exactly.
I don't know. Have y'all heard enough about private schools, public schools? Yes. Boring now, huh? The next thing we got to talk about, and this is what's driving the polls right now. Border security. What the heck can a state legislator do about border security? I mean, it's a federal domain, and you've been in the middle of this for what, a decade?
Absolutely. I've been down to the border countless times. I've been out in the boats. I've looked at the problem. Really, the only thing that we can do and are doing is toughening our laws. We have now made it, in this past legislative session, a crime to enter this country illegally. And if you're found to have done that, your first time it's a Class B misdemeanor, the second time it's a Class A misdemeanor.
So to put that in perspective, a Class B misdemeanor is something that you can be jailed for. It's not like if you get in a fight in a bar, it could be a Class C misdemeanor. Class B is elevated a little bit. I hope my law enforcement people can back me up on that based on my news reporting. So if you want to get on San Angelo Live, get a Class B misdemeanor. Anyway, keep going.
And build walls. I mean, we have $1.6 billion we appropriated in November to build more wall. Do
you think this is good money we're spending? Because you had almost a $33 billion surplus. That's a lot of tax cut for property taxes. And you guys know, I know, back in May, June, what was the biggest issue? Property tax valuation. We had a $32 billion surplus this year. Should we be spending that on border security the way we are, at the rate we are?
Well, are you suggesting we needed to spend more on property tax relief?
I think so.
And less on border security?
Well, I mean, I think that would be a conservative Republican position.
We spent almost $12 billion the last three biennium on border security, doing a job that the federal government should have done.
Can we bill the federal government?
I certainly hope our elected officials are keeping that in their back pocket, and that when we have a Republican administration,
we can get
maybe we can present a bill and maybe pay the bill.
Yeah. All right. Border security, obviously big. The other tripe I hear out there on the internet, do y'all watch the Tucker Carlson interviews? He interviewed Ken Paxton probably 2 months ago. If you haven't seen it, go look at it. In there, he talked about how in the Texas House, how it's built up, and you cannot be elected speaker without getting Democrat support. Ken Paxton said that, right? So I just want an inside scoop on this. In 2018, I don't know if any of you guys know this, but our Representative Drew Darby almost was elected speaker. So tell me about the process of getting elected. And do you really have to have Democrats support you?
No. In fact, the last three speakers have been elected with Republican support. We changed the process.
So how did you? So you changed the process so you can be elected speaker without Democrats voting.
Assuming the Republicans hold the majority in the House, which is 76 votes, then after the election, the Texas House meets in Republican caucus in December, and we meet for the purpose of determining our preferred candidate for speaker.
And it obviously has to be unanimous, right?
Doesn't have to be. You have to have 2/3 vote of the caucus to be the preferred candidate.
Okay.
And so the last two cycles, we've elected a speaker based upon 2/3. It was actually 100% of the Republican caucus, and on both times.
So even these wild right-wing conservatives or right-wing Republicans today who say they don't like the speaker voted for him to be speaker?
The Republicans elected that speaker.
Was it pretty much unanimous? I guess it had to be.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so
Well, there may have been
one or two.
from the knowledgeable seats. One didn't.
So
One didn't.
why do we have to appoint Democrats to committees or to committee chairmanships?
Well, let me point out a numerical problem. Do you like your property tax relief?
Yeah, I love my.
Did you like increasing your homestead exemption from 40 to 100,000?
Oh, I loved it.
Did you like setting up a Texas University fund that benefits Texas Tech University and
Yes.
Angelo State University and
All these wonderful.
how about
things.
infrastructure, water, energy?
Yes, we need more water out here.
How about
So are you
internet
tell-
access?
are you
all
telling-
of that? All that I'm telling you is that it sounds good in principle, but when you start trying to total up support for an initiative that makes sense, you have to have 100 votes. There are 85 Republicans. You got to get to 100. If you start isolating folks without participating in the process, then you can't get those things that we all here find valuable and worthy. These are folks that represent
So you're
200,000
saying
people like I do.
So without a supermajority, shut the cake hole about the Democrat chairs, or give me a supermajority of Republicans.
I've served in my 18 years. I've served one time when we had 102 Republicans.
Did you have Democrat chairs then?
Yes.
Because you have to make sausage.
Because
Gotta get stuff
there
done.
are issues that we have to collaborate on for the good of Texans.
Is the system built that way?
It's always been built that way. When Democrats controlled, Tom Craddock sat on as chairman of many a committee. You know, when he first came, there were 9 Republicans in the legislature. He built it into a Republican majority, and during that whole time, the speakers would appoint Republicans as chairs of committees.
Okay. So the Democrat chairs of committees is kind of like this, it's just a shouting point.
There's not a single Democratic chaired committee that doesn't have a majority of Republicans on that committee. So nothing will be voted out of that committee that the Republicans don't agree upon.
Gotcha. All right, one last thing. Obviously, elections are about the future. 2 more years. If you get reelected, what are we looking at as far as priorities for the next 2 years?
Well, first and foremost, after this election, Governor Abbott and I are going to sit down. Maybe we'll smoke a peace pipe, but certainly we will talk about everyone in this room and about how you're going to meet the needs that your family is going to have to need over the next 2 years. That requires cooperation. That requires communication. And I fully
I just want, you know, it seems to me, just looking at it from the news media perspective, there is no communications between the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who runs the Senate, and the Speaker of the House. Does the governor even talk to any of them? I heard the governor doesn't like the lieutenant governor. I mean, what is going on with Republicans not liking Republicans and not getting stuff done?
It's awful, isn't it?
Well,
I can tell you this, that almost all the senators are former House members. We call them housebroken. They're all housebroken. And so some of them can control themselves, some can't. But we have one-on-one communications. I mean, members of the legislature talk to members of the Senate. We talk. I mean, we talk about what's important, how to craft something. And in the end, yes, they kind of control the agenda from afar, but on a daily basis, we control the agenda. If we want to vote something out of the committee, then we can. If we want to consider a bill, we can. And so, you know,
so there is communication. There is communication.
Absolutely, there's communication. There should be. There should be communication. Statewide have their own agendas, but we that are serving want to represent the folks back home. And I go back to my initial statement. The best defense to somebody lying about you is to vote your district. And everyone in that room is supposed to follow that. Now, I may not agree with them, but they're supposed to vote their district. And I have to look at that. I went, why in the world did they vote for that? Mm-hmm. Well, their district is different, and it requires it. So I think what the public want, they don't want somebody to go down there and stick a sword in the ground and said, from this point I will not retreat. You know, that's not a policy that long-term benefits Texans.
Do you think you can make up with Governor Abbott?
Absolutely. Folks, this is about one vote. I have carried Governor Abbott's bills and water since he became governor. Before he was governor, he was an attorney general. And if you remember, we've had some problems here in the district. He honored his word. I was one of the first elected officials to endorse him for governor. I've carried 2 redistricting maps under his leadership, keeping our Republican majorities. I've carried Article 5 Convention of the States. Y'all know what that is? Some do. It's like we'll have a constitutional convention call and rewrite the Constitution. I was the committee chairman in the House for that bill. So we had a big celebration when he signed that bill. Mm-hmm. We had 300 or 400 people at the governor's mansion. Old Drew.
But not right now.
Not right now. Not right now. He told me before I took that vote, he looked me in the eye and said, Drew, I need your support. Governor?
Need your support on the voucher bill.
Vouchers.
Okay.
I said, Governor, it's bad for my district. I can't. He said, will you walk the vote? Walking means I just conveniently off the floor at the time. A lot of people do that.
So walking the vote means just not be there.
Just not be there. And then you can come back after the vote and register your vote one way or another. That's
where it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's chicken way of doing it. Or he said, well, you consider white lighting it. White light is even worse. It's saying, I'm not going to vote yay, I'm not going to vote nay. I'm just going to be a white light in the middle. I told him I'm not a white light guy. He said, well, you know that if you do this, I'm going to find somebody and run against you and endorse them. Governor, with all due respect, I do not represent you. I represent the folks back home.
There you go.
And that's why we're here today. That's why we're here. I knew what was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen.
Did you imagine how much money they would pour into it?
No. Ooh.
Now, just looking at the money, they're spending, I don't know, anywhere. It's real hard to figure out because these are all different PACs, and I've looked at all the campaign finance reports, which, by the way, Representative Darby's opponent, as of last time I looked, which was like Friday evening, she hadn't even filed her campaign finance report for February 5th. But they're spending probably close to $15,000, $20,000 a week. That's what I'm thinking.
More than that.
You think it's more than that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's 15,000 a mailer. How many of y'all getting just one mailer a week?
Maybe I was looking at just the TV buys.
How many text messages you're getting? You know, how many TikTok ads or whatever? They're spending a lot of money. I'd say $1.5 million, $2 million perhaps. And I'm not alone.
Do you think you're going to survive? Do you think you're going to?
I know I'm going to survive. I've got a beautiful wife. I've got 5 children, all happily married with 11 grandchildren. Drew Darby is going to be fine. This is not about Drew Darby. We're going to be fine. Mom and I are going to be fine. She's honey and I'm papa. Doesn't get any better than that, folks. We're going to be fine. What I worry about, and it would have been easy, there were 21 of us Republicans that voted against the vouchers. 5 already decided they were going to hang it up. I'm not going to worry with all this stuff. There's 16 of us that took a very important vote for our districts. And they're coming for those 16. But if the governor and the folks that live outside this state are successful, then they'll simply run over rural Texas. And I can't say it any plainer than that.
And the money they can make is significant because you carved out, or you didn't, but that legislation had carved out 5% of the $500 million to find a contract.
Outside vendors that would maintain accounting for the software or maintain the savings accounts. And oh yes, by the way, that 5%, there's another 3% to the controller to handle the money. That's 8% off the top.
So that's that's about $30 million.
We were talking about a $500 million. 500. You talk about budget dust. $500 million, but will grow to $4 billion, or perhaps double that. That becomes a pretty good amount of money. That's a pretty good amount of money to manage accounts.
And to explain it, there's proprietary software that's needed to be able to manage these private school vouchers.
Contrary to popular belief, even the Texas legislature was smart enough to figure out you just didn't want to write them a check. That's quite a step for the legislature, but I don't think that would have worked. And so we wanted to make sure the money goes in the account, they pay the tuition expenses for that, and then watch for it, because what you have is students that try it, they don't like it, and they want to move back to the public schools. So some third party was supposed to monitor all that to make sure there weren't abuses.
And so they're all donors right now from Virginia.
Well, there's one $6 million donor out of Pennsylvania that makes money off software.
There you go.
Gave it to the governor in December, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
So this has been the conversation. How was it? Was it a good conversation? Representative Drew Darby, thank you for being on our show. We're all strapped in here, but I'm about to lose my mic. But we appreciate y'all all coming out to this. Appreciate you, of course. Representative Darby didn't have to do this. If someone cuts the tape out of this thing and tries to say something out of context, y'all be looking for it. All right? Because this is our production. I don't want people using it. And like I said, this was risky for a representative who basically his opponent wouldn't even show up to debate tonight. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we all learned something, and we'll do it again. Thank you, sir. And this is Joe Hyde. I'm with San Angelo Live. I'm the publisher, and for all of us here and the team, we got James Bellini producing it, Tracy King who put the whole thing together. I got a new guy, Lucas Banda. Look at it, with the beard, he looks like he's Al Qaeda. My wife Judy, got Mary Coffey here, and of course Del Velasquez who helped with that. Thank y'all. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank y'all very much.